are, it is Packard day again. Kind of exciting because the whole rear suspension is mocked up. So I have it all taken apart right now because I need to finish weld some things. So today's video is going to be showing you all the different parts, and then I'm going to attempt to get the rear end back in the Packard and show you guys how everything is set up. So I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of welding. Basically, I have to finish my upper control arms. I have to weld these bungs in. And in the back of the car, the shock mounts need to be finished welded and gusseted. The bag plates and stuff are already in, so I just need to finish up some little stuff in here, and then the rear end is on jack stands already, and I need to finish welding the lower bag brackets and such things to that. So I'm gonna get the car up in the air, do some more welding, and then we're gonna put the rear end back in the car and hopefully set it down on the wheels. Alright, so here is the rear end out of the car, and I'm holding a light here because it's a little dark in the shop. But basically we have all of our brackets welded on. So we have lower control arm, bag mount, upper control arm. The shocks are going to bolt to the bag mount here on the bottom. So all this stuff is welded in and ready to go. So I'm going to try to get the wheels on this thing and get it up in the car and get everything connected up top. We have our lower control arm mounts there, upper control arm mounts there, and then we build a bag bridge for the upper bag mounts and the shock mounts. I'm going to gusset the shock mounts, but I want to get everything in here to make sure the gussets aren't going to be in the way of anything before I weld them in. So all this stuff is in the car. Next step is going to be to get the wheels on the rear end and get this thing tucked up in there, and hopefully I'll be able to put some air to it here real soon and make it go up and down. Alright, so we've got parts laid out. Upper control arms are here. Fresh anti-seize on all this stuff. Ended up doing R joints for the upper control arms on both sides. These upper control arms are worth about $600 now, which is ridiculous because originally the whole 4-link kit was about $700. So the upper control arm brackets, you can see they're not a lot higher than where the lower control arms are going to mount, and it's because of how this frame is designed that I had to do this that way. So being that they're really short, they actually ride at quite a steep angle, and that caused me to not be able to run rubber joints. I had to run R joints, which is basically a Heim joint but a little bit nicer. So I am going to do a little bit of trimming up here real quick, and then we'll lower the car down and get this thing set up in there again so we can see what it looks like all put together. Alright, looking from the inside of the car, got our upper control arms in, the lower control arms are in, all this stuff is in here. So what I need to do now is get the bags and the shocks in place, and then maybe we'll run this thing through the motions real quick. So there's going to be some sheet metal work to do in here. These panels on each side I cut out so I could weld the upper control arm mount better. So we'll probably just patch those in. But then I'm going to have to make some sort of a little tunnel for drive shaft clearance. And then a big piece of sheet metal to go over my bridge plate. And that's where my air tank and everything's going to mount in the trunk as well. So let me grab some more parts. We'll throw them in here. Alright, I'm going to give you a look inside the car before we lift it up and look underneath. So we have our bag mounts, shocks are in. The reason the shock mount is so high is I needed a shock with enough travel to work with my suspension travel, but I needed one short enough that it wasn't, 2 feet long. So this is the shortest shock I could find with 5 inches of travel. So that's what we've got in there. So I'm going to put this thing up in the air and we'll take a look underneath. Alright, so looking under the car here, you can see this is going to be about ride height. So our lower control arm is about level. Upper control arm is not at much of an angle, so that'll be good for ride height, keeping all the pinion geometry right. We got our shock mount here, which goes to the lower bag mount. I have a little radius cut out here so I can get this lower control arm bolt in and out. I had a little bit of a back brace to the bag mount just for extra strength. Everyone I've talked to said I'm going overkill on this thing, but that's okay, because if I'm gonna do it once, I'm gonna make sure it's done right. So you can see our bag here is stretched out right now. But yeah, that's everything. So what I'm gonna try to do real quick is hook up a couple air lines to a Schrader and see if I can get movement out of this thing with compressed air. So I'm gonna let it down, gather up some fittings, and see what we can make happen. All right, so temporarily what I've done is I've just teed the two bags together with pneumatic line, and then I got a little Schrader valve fitting on this side. So what I'll do, I'll put some air in the bags, I'll set the camera out here, and watch it go up. Now that's with about 50 pounds of air in the bags, so that'll be about my ride height. Now what I'll do is I'll pull the valve and let all the air out of it. And that's how it works. Pretty cool. I'll set the camera up in here so you guys can watch the suspension move once I get the Schrader valve back in. All right, so that's going to do it for today. We have a fully functioning rear suspension in this thing, which is a big milestone for me. Something I thought was going to take a weekend took about a month. That's me working out here on the weekends and some after work. So I try to post up about this more on Instagram, so be sure that you guys follow me up there. And what I'm going to do next is start on the front suspension. Once I get a few more little things tweaked in the rear of this, I need to do my gussets for the shock mounts, but it seems to work. It doesn't seem to bind, it seems to move freely. So I'm happy with it. So stay tuned, guys, for more on the Packard build, and I'll have a welder review coming up soon. We're going to MIG weld some aluminum. So Yes Welder hooked me up with a setup to do that. So stay tuned, more videos coming your way. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.